Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Art of Awakening, and welcome if you're new. My name is Ona, and today we're going to explore a couple of portal points that are coming up a little bit later in October on the 1022, October 22nd portal, as well as the partial solar eclipse happening on the 25th. So stay tuned. We're going to look at each of these, what they mean spiritually, their significance, as well as things to look out for during this time. Okay, so the 1022 portal, this really called itself to my attention through a video from astrologer Bracha Goldsmith. And I don't follow her totally, but this particular video just really popped out at me, and it was like, oh, I think I need to really watch this. And it was one that she posted, about a week ago here, so probably within that first week of October, and talking about the Venus star. And she gave this little video as an introduction, and then a couple of days later, she did an interview with the astrologer Ariel Gutman. And I'll put the link to this video down in the description because I feel like it's super significant. Ariel Gutman is an astrologer who discovered that the planet Venus, as it moves through the heavens, creates a five-pointed star pattern which transits through the signs of the zodiac at various intervals in history. And it's been described as the heartbeat of the heavens. So this is a real innovative, new system of astrology that she has invented or downloaded. And just a couple things from Ariel Gutman's blog about this Venus star. The Venus star spends 100 years in a sign on average, and then for 150 years it's absent from that sign. And this October 22nd, for the first time in 150 years, the Venus star is going to be entering the sign of Libra. And the last passage through Libra occurred from 1771 to 1880, coinciding with the birth of two new and important democracies following the American and the French revolutions. Okay? And she says, I'm just going to quote her here. She says, of course, a 100-year passage of a transit through a sign covers much ground. Where do we begin to interpret the impact of such a long transit? One of the first things we can do is look to the sign of Libra and what it represents. Libra, on the one hand, represents the scales of justice and has to do with laws and the courts. Another facet of Libra is the goddess that graces this sign, Venus, and the idea of harmony, grace, beauty, and the feminine. And she says this is a radical change from where that star point has been for the previous 100 years, 1926 to 2026. In Scorpio, governed by Mars and secondarily by Pluto. So we are culturally and collectively switching gears from a Mars-dominated culture to a Venus-dominated culture. Okay, so what do we make of this? My thoughts are, when I look at this, I'm seeing very much yet another indication of what we all know is happening, the return of the goddess and the rise of the divine feminine in planetary consciousness. Okay, so on the one hand, we've got this beautiful light or divine aspect of Libra, the balance, the equality, the justice, partnership, harmony, and beauty. And many of these are really associated with the divine feminine as well. And so this could really portend a lot of really amazing things happening in this coming century. I'm feeling like, and this is something that Ariel Gutman pointed out too, that the last time this happened was the era of classical music. So this beautiful explosion of really harmony and beauty in music coming forward. So it's quite possible that we could be looking at a century of just an artistic renaissance, and whatever art forms are going to be the primary ones for this time. We may start, like, if you're sensitive to this, you may also start feeling like creatively there could be a creative opening, right? And energies that are helping to facilitate creative flow. So something to really, really look forward to. But and also the idea of Libra as law, right? And so this is something that I've been very personally aware of, is that law is going to be, I think, a more and more important thing to be aware of. This is why I've started really delving into the spiritual laws and being aware of those. It's something that's really in the ethers, and especially knowing about this Venus star moving through Libra. Shed some light on that. Okay, so light aspect of Libra and the divine feminine, all this beauty and harmony. But the thing to remember about any archetype, including Libra and including the divine feminine, is that they, like everything else, are subject to the law of polarity, right? Which states that things happen along a spectrum and happen as poles, right? So there's going to be light and dark aspects, okay? As well as bringing forward all the best that the goddess energy has to offer. We may also have to be aware that the shadow energy of Libra and of the goddess, shadow energy, I should say, of the feminine, is also likely to be flushed up, okay? So in the case of the dark feminine, we're looking at things like covert manipulation, vampiric energy, dependency, guilt tripping, gaslighting, and social shaming. And the shadow side of Libra is going to be, there's a lot of overlap there, right? Because Libra tends to be a relatively feminine sign. But the shadow side of Libra, loss of self, right? Not knowing one's own truth, being overly compromising, lack of boundaries, codependency, and along with that, passive aggression, right? People pleasing, peer pressure, indecision, resentment, and using beauty as power. Okay, so something just really to be aware of. It's going to be even more important than ever as we move through and past this October 2022 portal, and when the Libra star is going to be really operating strongly on the earth here. It's going to be more important than ever to work with our solar energies, tuning into the sun, inviting in that solar light, also strengthening our solar plexus, right? Developing strong personal boundaries and a strong sense of self. Because that is going to help to uphold this beautiful Libra energy, this goddess energy, and give it some structure to work with so that she can really overflow with the beauty and the harmony. Okay. Also, along with this, right, values work, developing a strong sense of personal and societal moral values may become an increasingly prevalent necessity as we move forward into the 20th century, okay? Values work, also knowledge of the law, knowing what are your rights, right? What is the law? What are the universal spiritual laws? How are we aligning with those? Super important because, again, that's going to provide the framework that the feminine needs to help her stay on track and really create this beauty and abundance. Okay, so I did do an Akashic inquiry around this, around the 10/22/22, and I was given the indication. They said this juncture resonates with nobility. It is a high vibrational energy. Okay, so we're welcoming more high vibe energy, and this can help to kind of trigger and support your own inner king archetype, your inner queen archetype, right? Those regal parts of ourselves. This can actually really support our sense of self, our self-identity, but it may be something that we need to stand up for, right? And to step into, okay? It may not just happen to us. We may have to actually kind of earn that. All right, so they also gave me this image, and I'll kind of show it to you. It's right in my sketchbook, so with amongst a lot of scribbles. But they showed me this hand, just sort of resting on this ovoid object. And the download, it felt like it was an object of control that she had her hand on. It could be like the head of a scepter or a staff, maybe a stone of power or a crystal. It could even be a joystick or a computer mouse. So her hand's just resting there, very poised, not really, but ready for action. That was the feeling I was getting. And so when I asked the Akash, whose hand is this? The immediate answer was the Queen of Destiny. And then they went on to say that hand belongs to you. And I think you, meaning not just me, but any of you who are listening, right? It's the Queen, the hand of the Queen of Destiny on that joystick control, power crystal, whatever it is, right? And they said that hand belongs to you. The actions of the individual have never carried more import than now. The small choices you make at home or at work, whether about mundane matters or etheric undertakings, whether it's, the what you're having for lunch or your spiritual journeys. Okay, these choices are going to be intensely felt at this time and carry the possibility of significant impact. Okay, so we're at this incredible period of time right now where every little decision, every little choice that we make, it throws weight, right, one way or the other, because the Earth's at this tipping point, right, where we're, there's these forces of dark and light that are all going at each other or operating and each wanting to proliferate. So every single choice we make is either going to fall on one side of the scale or the other, right? There's Libra. All right, so that is the 1022, and I'm going to go on also and talk about the partial solar eclipse on October 25th. This eclipse is going to be visible in much of Europe, Northern Africa, and many parts of Asia. So the eclipse, any eclipse, it brings a glimpse of night into the daytime hours. And historically, going into antiquity, eclipses were often feared. They were seen as, kind of evil times, bad omens, right? Omens of, misfortune to come. That's kind of the historical view, and you can take that view if you wish. But again, using that same law of polarity, we can also see the opportunity that is here for us at this time and at any time of an eclipse, right? And that is what that's a power that we have as light workers, is to be able to see all these potentialities and to transmute or to transform energy, right? Again, using that law of polarity and seeing that, well, if there's energy of kind of darkness there, we can turn it around and turn it to light, okay? So the aware mind can take advantage of an eclipse, see it as an opportunity, find the opportunity within it, and you can see it as an excellent time to inquire within and potentially to face your shadow self, right? And it's through facing the shadow self and working with that and integrating that shadow, that's how we can really, open up to more light. So remembering the law of correspondence, as above, so below, you may find yourself triggered during this eclipse window. So anything that triggers you, realize that's the law of correspondence at work and the law of vibration, right? That vibration in there has something to do with, what's going on within you if you're feeling triggered. So if that happens to you, look within to find that energy within yourself, okay? It's mirroring something in you. You're not going to be triggered unless there's unintegrated energy there. And that, of course, is always an opportunity, okay? Any unintegrated energy has this energy of potential, okay? And when we are able to work through it, then that unleashes a lot of power for us, okay? And that's, in a very positive way. So, for example, perhaps during this time you may, just as a story example, right? If maybe the eclipse happens, or this season, this portal of the eclipse, and you may feel overwhelmed, for example, by maybe a deluge of fires to put out at work, okay? Or it could be some kind of relationship thing coming up, but let's look at the maybe overwhelm at work, okay? So say that happens to you. Then you can kind of look within. It's like, okay, well, where might I be overly demanding or critical of myself or of others, okay? And what's the core wound that contributes to that, okay? And just maybe do some journaling around that and see what happens, or whatever it is that triggers you. Maybe it's a political issue, right? Why is it triggering you? Go within, see where that vibration is. You might even feel on a part of your body, right? What's vibrationally being triggered. You work with your guides, work with your journal, and find that core wound or core, something. There's a core energy in there that is asking to be integrated, okay? Asking to be healed. So being willing to actually look at what needs healing, both with appropriate compassion and with appropriate dispassion, okay? So we want to look with our mind and not so much with our emotions, because that's what the triggering does, right? Triggering, anything that triggers you that's playing on the emotional body. That's why all these stories and things happening in the media, they're designed to trigger you emotionally, okay? And what that does is it bypasses the logical mind, and it sends you spinning into some kind of action, but it's not necessarily a logical action, okay? So really be aware of anything triggering during this eclipse time, and breathe, bring it down, and then use your mind, your mental capacity to help to balance that emotional whoof, right? And that is what I mean by dispassion. It's stepping away from the emotional body and just looking at, from a very rational, logical point of view. And also looking with compassion, okay? Because anytime we're emotionally triggered, there's likely to be shame, there's likely to be blame, there's likely to be hurt, right? So we can kind of hold space for that with our mind, acknowledge, and then kind of look in deeper at what is actually happening here, okay? So this eclipse, just to sum it up, this eclipse could signify a rising up of the shadow collectively, as perhaps it could be individuals being triggered, it could be a whole, group of the collective being triggered. And, dark emotions perhaps coming up, fears, anger, hatred, blaming, shaming. Any of this could happen. I'm not saying it will, but it could, right? It could that could be like a rising up of the shadow, would be kind of knee-jerk reactions to these things in ways that aren't necessarily productive. But when you can kind of step into that grounded feeling, right? That grounded state of being, and to allow your reason to, and your rational mind, your higher reasoning, your higher self, to kind of step in and to help to, figure out what's going on here. This can become a calling out of the shadow, right? By those who can see through it. So rather than a rising up of the shadow, let's call out the shadow. Bring it forward. Let's look at it and really see deeply into it. Okay, so I just had this avalanche of snow coming off my roof. It's really cool. So this particular eclipse, my feeling is that the potential for that is very, very strong. I mean, it's sort of like inverted from the typical antiquity view of an eclipse, so that rather than the light being dimmed, this one holds great potential for the shadows to be illuminated, so to actually bring the light into the shadows. Okay, meaning like the shadow is showing up, but it's in daytime, right? So we can see it a little better. Sees this as an opportunity to point out truths or to reconcile to the truth, okay? And this might be a time where you are finally able to see through illusion, maybe lies that you've been telling yourself, maybe deceptions that have been put out there for the general public, whatever it is, okay? One way that this could potentially play out in the collective is through significant disclosures or lies brought to light, okay? So this isn't really a prediction, but it's just just saying what's possible here for this eclipse time. And I hope that you just take this for what it's worth. Always trust your own higher guidance, your own inner, above anything that myself or anybody else is spewing online, right? I'm just sharing this because that's my dharma. But, take this information and look into it. Allow your own higher guidance to guide you through this time. It's an incredibly potent and exciting time, and probably a good time also to really kind of ground yourself, do some inner work, do some meditation, perhaps a ceremony, right? To help to bring light into the whole situation, whether in your own life or just for the planet on its own, okay? Sending light into the grid on behalf of all beings. Thank you for watching, and remember, you were born to be free.